Just want to give a little shout out to our sponsors. Our first being Inverted Gear. Inverted Gear sells rash guards, gi, shorts, the whole gambit of jiu-jitsu gear. Go to invertedgear.com. They make high quality stuff. They even have the show the art inverted gear gi that you can buy. Very cool, very high quality. If you type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART15, you will save 15% on your next order. Sold to the man with the mouse. Go to invertedgear.com, type in the coupon code, save yourself some money. Next sponsor is VapeRite. If you're looking for some CBD oil that you can vaporize and help with your recovery from training hard, or some people say that CBD oil allows them to relax a little better, especially before going to sleep. Go to vapebright.org and type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART, and you can save some good money. It's high quality stuff. I use it after training all the time. A couple of swigs of this vapor that is not burning your lungs and destroying your body. In fact, healing your body. Vapebright.org, type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART. Of course, our next sponsor is Chimera Coffee. Chimera and coffee with a K. Go to chimeracoffee.com, type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART, and save some money on their nootropic infused coffee. And Google nootropics, see what you find. If it's something you like, might as well order it with your coffee, all in one. You brew it in any coffee machine. You get your caffeine fix, you get your nootropic fix, and you get to think and be more energized, and all at the same time. So go to chimeracoffee.com, type in them coupon codes, and save some moolah. Our last sponsor is ModCup. ModCup, ModCup.com. ModCup serves up the freshest coffee around. And when I mean fresh, I don't mean it in the slang way. I mean it in the literal way. All their coffee is roasted and served and sold within 2 weeks. If not, it goes straight to the trash. They never have to trash it because it gets sold out. That's how good it is. ModCup is a local roaster by us, and they get all their coffee from the 1% of the world. And when I say 1%, I mean the 1 percentile of quality. So high quality coffee from around the world. Go to their website, type in the coupon code SHOWTHEART, and save yourself money. They also have the Cascara chocolate. And the Cascara chocolate is basically they take the fruit shell. Coffee is a fruit. And then what they do is they take that fruit, they dry the shell off of it, and then what you're left with is that coffee bean that everybody talks about. So ModCup, they take that fruit shell, and then they make a tea out of it. They make an iced tea out of it, and now they grind it up and they infuse it with some dark chocolate. It's really good, kind of fruity. Sometimes it reminds you of hibiscus. If you're into the hibiscus, try their chocolate, their Cascara chocolate. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well. Living a life here in sunny Las Vegas.
How were the fights? Did you watch them? I hope you did.
Yes, of course. Very interesting fights. Man, some barn burners, that's for sure.
TJ Dillashaw, that's all I got to say.
Yeah. Well, I guess I didn't jinx it,
Yeah, you almost did. Man, what a great night of fights. So many good technical battles. What were some of your favorite fights?
Well, for sure. I'll say off the get-go, the first fight on the main card, Santos versus Holland, was just a crazy fight. I'm surprised it went the distance.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy fight.
Because Thiago is throwing heat. I mean, he goes like he does. He's like 0 to 100, man. And to his credit, the whole fight he was throwing heat. Even in the third round, trying to put this guy Kevin Holland away. But Kevin's just really tough and durable, and very savvy too. He was throwing a lot of tricky stuff in there, like right off the get-go, jumping for the omoplata and
Yep.
switching to the armbar.
Yeah, and he took this fight on short notice. The whole story behind him is he was on a Dana White show, and he won his fight, but Dana didn't really want him because he was like talking too much crap. So when they were looking for a replacement, he was the only guy from the show that actually took the fight. It was like 2 or 3 weeks short notice. So a lot of respect to this guy. And yeah, he was throwing some crazy stuff and was talking the entire fight. His mouthpiece fell out a couple times. It's crazy.
Yes, and I would say that is something he should work on because I think his smack talking and a little bit of too much gamesmanship might have cost him a few opportunities. I think there was one point in the second round where they broke up and they were on their feet, and he was talking crap. Oh, what was it? His mouthpiece came out. He was putting it back in. And then right after he put it back in, Thiago just ran him over and took him down.
Yeah.
Because he's getting distracted by the game,
Right.
Rather
No,
than
great
just
point.
focusing on winning the fight. He looks like he's too emotionally invested in like trying to win the, who's the best smack talker, who's the most, badass guy in there, rather than just do the technical things that you need to do to win this fight. Because he definitely had the tools that he could have put away Thiago. Even on his feet striking, there's a couple shots that he landed that made Thiago think twice.
Right. Yeah, he was game 100%. And, I guess that was him trying to distract, I guess, himself from his lack of experience versus Thiago's, big-time experience. But also maybe, to make up for the experience. But like you said, yeah, it did distract him from the main goal, and that's to finish the fight. Thiago's not a guy you want to, like, not pay attention against. The guy, like, could put you in the hospital. He's a serious puncher. I thought it was very interesting. At the end of the second round, I think Holland reversed him with, like, a Kimura grip.
He did.
Do you remember that?
Kimura trapped him.
I'm surprised you didn't bring that up. But then they ended the round with Thiago on the bottom looking like he wanted to quit. Like, really tired, exhausted, was making an effort, but there wasn't much effort there to get out. And you could tell he was super tired. But he came out and won the third round. How crazy was that?
Yeah, and so you mentioned, because I was gonna get to that. Yeah, because Kevin Holland did a nice Kimura trap, flipped him over, got on top, started landing some elbows. I think he could have been a little busier there because the chances of him getting the opportunity again were probably slim. But
Right.
All being said, it was a good way to close out the round. And, you could have made a case there that maybe he stole it, although that would be a little tough. But
Right.
Coming into the third round, I would have expected Holland to come in even harder because knowing that either maybe he stole the round, but he definitely needs round 3 either way to win it.
Right.
But Thiago, I think, went in the mindset that he probably dropped that round. So he's thinking, we're 1-1 now. I got to take this round. And he didn't mess around, took him down right away. And for the most part, controlled him on the ground for a bit and just did good ground positioning. And Thiago's, ground game is also really good. And I think at one point almost had him in an arm triangle.
Yeah, he did. Correctly. He did. And it looked pretty deep, but I guess he was just kind of tired. It's hard to finish, especially a head arm triangle when you're a little tired. And what's his name? Holland. He escaped pretty easily, which told us that Thiago was kind of just holding that more for position and hopes that he would, tap out, just being caught in a submission. So, but it was a really good attempt, and you could tell it was his move because he went for it a couple times during the fight.
Yeah, the thing, there's essentially 2 ways that you can really finish an arm triangle when you're in top position.
Mm-hmm.
The first is with your chest. The second is with your shoulder, right? So when you have his arm crossed over his neck, which is the ideal position that you're looking for, at the very least, he's not answering the phone escape, where he's sort of blocking there. So if the arm's crossed, you're using your chest to finish. So like for me, that means I'm trying to put my chin on top of his face so that it's preventing his elbow from coming back. And then my chest is pushing on the back of his tricep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's creating the actual choke because the arm is being pushed into the neck, creating the arm triangle.
Right.
But
Similar to
in
like
there,
a regular
he doesn't
triangle.
look like he was really squeezing with his chest. He was holding on good, but I didn't see the chest pressure.
Okay.
So a guy that's tough like Holland, he'll eat the pressure of just the arms.
Right. Right. Have you ever seen the head? Speaking of head arm triangles, have you ever seen it with the opponent's the arm that's caught in the head arm triangle? Their hand is caught in there as well. So like you're reaching across, and you got the hand caught underneath, as if like the person was trying to pummel their arm back out, and finishing it like that. This kid Junie from Unity in New York City, he actually has finished a couple of matches like that with the head arm triangle. I think he does it from the mount, and he allows the hand to get stuck in there.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was saying there's two ways, right? So the first way is again with the chest pressure, and that's when you have your ideal position, arm across the neck.
Right.
Now, when they do answer the telephone, so they're essentially their elbow and their hand are on the same side, so you don't really have the arm being able to choke them anymore. Now, to me, it's a shoulder choke, and essentially, if I'm on the left side of you, my right shoulder is going to drop down into the front of your throat and press down. So that your positioning is a little different for that variation, because now essentially I want to be as flat as I can, because I'm trying to bring essentially my shoulder to my wrist.
Right.
And now I'm going to twist my hips a little bit away from you so that I could sink my shoulder in more. And that one doesn't care if your arm's in or not, because it'll finish either way. So those are the two variations, the basic ones that you can do anytime you have an arm triangle. So in this situation, Kevin actually escaped. He didn't let go of it. I think there was another fight that someone let go of an arm triangle, which I was like, I would never do that unless, time, I needed a KO or something like that.
Right. Yeah, Kevin Kevin Holland, right? He did like a backwards roll, and I guess if the pressure was right, he wouldn't have been able to do that backwards roll, right? Hello?
I'm still here if you can hear me.
I can hear you now. I missed probably like 10 seconds of talk after I asked you about the backwards roll.
Yeah, okay, so normally you wouldn't be able to do that backwards roll. Now, there's always exceptions. I think probably Kevin Holland is always going to be that exception. He's so lanky. I think that he was able to get his hips over his head, and at that point, it was just a lot of leverage that was hard for Santos to keep him down with. But yeah, he's just a very unorthodox, unusual guy. He definitely didn't want to be put away,
No, so that's for sure.
I don't think he was going to go out easy.
Right, and I liked his guard defense when he was on bottom. He did a lot of interesting things, and it was interesting. Sometimes he just was moving his head a lot, just kind of bobbing and weaving from the bottom. I thought that was very interesting, and he did a really good job with the defense.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the unsung stories there, is that he was very effective at defense, because a lot of times, like, even when you saw his opening salvo there, where he threw the standing omoplata, switched to the armbar, and then when Thiago pulled out the armbar, right away he started firing like a cannon, which is excellent on his part. But if you watch, none of those punches hit, because Kevin was moving right away, and he has his hands up, and he slip. So even though, like, I think the judges looked at that and go, "Oh, Kevin got rocked." Like, no, he didn't even take a single shot, because he was slipping punches right from the ground there. So it's common sense in a way, but nobody really does it.
Right.
A lot of people just sit there and they put their hands up, and especially if you got someone like Santos who's throwing bombs, you can block it. It's still going to hurt you. It's like blocking a swing of a baseball bat. It still rocks you.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not there, even worse, if you punch the mat, that rolls your wrist, that can mess you up too. So, yeah, much credit to Kevin. He had great awareness off his back on defending ground and pound and staying out of the way of danger. Although he did end up eating some good shots.
That's right.
So he does have a good chin as well, but he definitely minimized the amount of damage that he could have taken. Because I think a normal guy with Thiago on top of him, probably would have been ended right there.
Definitely. Now, going into that point, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but do you think people spend maybe too much time worrying about looking clean, about looking sharp, about most of all maybe not looking goofy when they're fighting, so they might not even enter the territory of thought of doing what he did from the bottom guard to kind of slip and move around those punches like we just talked about, because it is a goofy thing to try and to practice, I guess. Do you think that might have something to do with it?
Honestly, I think just most people are really aware. I don't know if it's about goofy. Like personally, I mean, I don't care if I look silly. If it works, it works.
Right.
I think it's more people just don't realize it, or they're because when you're on your back, you're very unmobile. So to do what he's doing, you got to shift your weight around or whatnot. I think just most people are not really as well versed. I think what they're thinking is, I'm going to try to get up to my feet as quickly as I can, rather than being content on my back and slipping punches off my back.
Right, because he really had to shift his hips as he slipped his head the opposite way. So you had to do a lot of things with your body.
Correct. And keep in mind, when he's slipping punches there, he's also not able to get up. Right. So I think most people have the focus of, I'm trying to get up as quickly as I can. I'm going to eat some shots as I get up, but I'm going to get up. Whereas Kevin was thinking there, that's the other thing about Kevin. He's content being on his back.
Yeah, he's confident.
If you notice, Thiago let him up. I think most of the occasions when he did get up, either the referee stepped in or Kevin took his time getting back up to his feet. Mm-hmm. So I think Thiago just realized he was getting frustrated being on top of this guy. So he's not putting that pressure to stand up, whereas most fighters, they're scrambling to their feet as soon as they can because they're worried about losing the round or getting submitted or TKO'd off the back. But sure. I definitely think there should be a balance for sure. Like especially, for example, you get dropped, you're rocked, you're probably not getting up right away. And when you do get up, most people end up getting choked because they give up their neck. Mm-hmm. So I think people could take notes here, learn, work some slipping, work some defense, head movement off your back. And then once you dodge that initial salvo, get back up to your feet. It's definitely an option to consider.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's hard. It's hard to find that balance of, like, you should ideally try to get up from the bottom, because it's just not a good idea to have a trained fighter above you. He's just in a better spot when we have punches. You have to be really confident, really sharp in your guard to be effective. But even then, you don't have the advantage because at the end of the day, one punch can end the fight. So I guess what do you think is the idea that people should go for? If there's a scramble and you fall or you get, is that when you try to get up immediately, and then if you can't, then you settle for your guard, or should you settle for your guard if you just really are that confident in it?
Well, it definitely depends on your skill set. So if you got someone like Damian Maia, you're welcoming the guard, right? Because that's what you're trying to get people to the ground the whole time. But I think for most of our fighters on the roster now are starting to become more striking centric. Because that's where most of the scoring is being done. That's the easiest indicator of winning the fight, I think, based on judging. Right. So I think most fighters are definitely trying to scramble up, but there's a few things that you always have to be. And if you look like later on when we talk about DJ and Henry Cejudo, the times that DJ got up was when he didn't stop moving. Yes. And it's essentially that's wrestling, it's a scramble. But the moment you stop moving, then the top guy covers, gets dominant position. So there's definitely scrambles. Scrambles also invite other perils, like surprise punches and knees or chokes. And I think for the most part, usually people get caught in chokes when they scramble they get dropped or they get taken down and they try to get to their knees right away. And your neck is always going to be sticking out there. And that's the first thing people try to look for. Sure. So you definitely need some awareness. But if I'm telling my guys, you're getting taken down, scramble. Don't give them the space. Don't let them get tight with you. And don't let him get comfortable on top. As long as you keep moving, he still hasn't been able to solidify that position yet. But once there's a lull in the action and you stopped and he's on top of you, I think then definitely you got to, compose your guard, work on some defense, and then either you're going to attack off your back or you're going to work back up to your feet again.
And that's exactly what happened in the next fight I'd like to talk about. Cub Swanson versus Moicano, right? I mean, Cub Swanson did get rocked, but a lot of scrambles ensued, and then I think he was mounted the second time, and then he tried to explode out, do a quick escape. He turtled up and immediately got caught in a rear naked choke. That's the right fight, right? Am I talking about the right fight?
You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
cool.
Yeah. So they started off on their feet. They were both measuring each other.
Yeah.
Moicano looked very much more patient, whereas Cub was sort of lunging in to get some shots, and
Right.
he just clocked him with a stiff left that just dropped Cub, and he covered him right away. And to his credit, Cub did a great job of recovering.
Yes, he
I'm
did.
not sure how hurt he was, but he was definitely hurt. But he was surviving. He was playing butterfly, half butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, he got mounted, but he still was defending pretty good and not eating damage because Moicano was too busy trying to control him.
Yeah.
But I think he made a strategic error where he gave his back, and Moicano was all over him.
Oh my
right
God.
away, had the short choke in, and that's a hard spot so early in the round, and he had the figure four and everything. So
yeah. I thought what Cub did was very interesting the first time he got mounted. He didn't try to bridge or push. He literally put his hands on the mat, chest to face to chest, and tried to like butt scoot and sit up. And like that's how he got his hips out. So it wasn't like a shrimp escape sideways. It was like I guess a shrimp kind of sitting up. It was very interesting.
No, yeah, like I said, I was impressed that he had survived as long as he did
Yeah.
because so fresh in the round, like that. Usually that's the end right away, but like he did a good job of not getting hit after that first shot. It was just too many opportunities were given to Renato to try to catch him, and particularly when he gave his back. I think that was the final error. But
do you think he was impatient when he did that last, I guess, explosive attempt to get out by turtling?
Yeah, again, now it's easy to say, oh, that was a mistake. He should have stayed a little more patient. But, I'm not sure how much in his head he was at that point either.
Right.
If one more shot's going to put you out, then maybe he had to because, he stays in mount for another second and Moicano pops him, he's done.
Right.
So it's hard for me to say over here, but obviously looking at the tape, well, we know that one didn't work. So, maybe he should have stayed in the mount just a little bit longer.
Right.
And try to work that half butterfly again.
And who knows, against maybe 90% of the other fighters, he would have gotten his back taken. But Moicano he threw the choke in so quickly, almost before he got the hooks in, or at the same time. Like maybe, it's just Moicano's just that good. He was just lightning fast with his whole back take and sliding that arm through the neck.
Yeah, clearly he was waiting for it because it was super fast. Like he must have been just riding there, and his whole game plan is like, I know this guy is gonna have to give his back with all the pressure I'm putting, and the moment he does, I'm gonna be all over him because it was just a beautiful transition, and. Yeah, he must have known,
for sure.
Most people respond that way anyways, but he was clearly that was the opportunity he was waiting for because if you notice, he wasn't throwing anything crazy from top like most people. Like that's what I think that was really impressive about Renato. He was very patient.
Right.
The whole fight he was very patient, and even at that end, rather than just blow his load and just punch like 100 times, he was trying to control and control. He was just waiting for the opportunity, and he got it.
Sure. That was obviously a scenario they've trained for, and it seemed more than likely that was a scenario that was part of their game plan.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's funny because they said he's never gotten a KO finish, but clearly he's got the power to do it.
Right. I mean that jab was a jab that put him out, but there was just so much like snap on it, and I think Cub kind of threw a jab or a fake right before, and then kind of like was about to stutter step or fake when he did get hit. So he was kind of moving forward when he did get hit with that jab that dropped him. Yeah.
So that's why sometimes you get hit like that, and it's like you got knocked off your feet.
No, that was
so. But he definitely got drop, but maybe a little bit of a mix of both. But yeah, whenever you have those collisions, it's always a problem. You know,
Right.
when you're moving into the force of the punch, it's never good.
Right, but hats off to Moicano. He looked really sharp. I can't wait to see him against other top guys. I mean, he's in the 145-pound division. There's a lot of killers in that division.
Yep, and he's already gone through quite a few of them. So he's got another guy with a great record. He's only losses to Brian Ortega, which is obviously a tough fight. But he's got wins over Jeremy Stevens, now Cub Swanson. So he's definitely getting himself up in the rankings, and he's a young guy. He's 29.
So what did you think about Henry Cejudo versus Demetrious Johnson? A lot of controversy. Very close fight. They gave it to Henry. Did you agree with the decision?
I'll be honest. I was a little surprised, but I did. The case can definitely be made for it. Now, I would say a little surprised because normally the champion gets the nod when things are real close.
Right.
But so there's a few things here. First, I have to say the first minute of the fight was very scary.
Oh, man.
So it looked like the whole fight was going to end right before it even started.
Yeah.
When they showed that replay of his foot bending inwards, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Right? It was like, what the hell just happened? Was he drugged before the fight? It looked like he was just going to pass out and collapse.
Yeah, it reminds me of that scene in Troy where Hector stumbles in the stone. And, Achilles is like, I'm not going to let a stone ruin my glory.
You know what was weird, too? It reminded me of when Michael Chandler, I believe he fought Primus. He got hit with something, and his leg just went numb on him, and that's actually what ended the fight. The refs called it. They said he couldn't really walk. Every time he tried to plant on that foot, it just wouldn't respond, and that fight ended. So that was what my brain was going to. Holy crap, he might not be able to walk. The ref's going to stop the fight because his leg is just not responding.
Yeah, so that was definitely scary, but fortunately he was able to move through it and make a very, very interesting fight. I would say that the inside trip, what a money move that was for Henry Cejudo. And it's funny because I just released a video, I think it was this week, or maybe it might have been last week, showing the inside trip from a Russian 2-on-1. And what I'd always tell people is that the inside trip is a great takedown because it always guarantees a takedown. Because you land in the guard 99% of the time,
right? Just
because you're inside. So when you trip, and it makes it very difficult for people to scramble out of them.
Right.
Other takedowns, when you're landing with distance or your legs are not intertwined as you're going down, the hips come free and people are able to scramble out. But an inside trip is always going to score you a 2 because if you landed it right, you're tight with him, you're chest to chest, and your legs intertwined. There's no real scramble out. And you could see, every takedown Henry did was an inside trip.
Yeah. Moving forward, moving backward, just beautiful work.
Yep, and it's a great takedown from the clinch. So I think people should definitely take note from the Olympian.
Yeah, man. And
how to
even
bring
when
someone down, especially someone like DJ, who just is so monstrously hard to get down because he's a great scrambler and a wrestler himself.
Oh, my God. His scrambles were absurd. It was just back and forth. Like, you couldn't blame Henry for not being able to hold on to him because he was just making nonstop movements like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and doing a great job of using the Granby roll, to escape out of it. It's just the key is just moving. The times that he got taken down, he got caught, and once the inside trip is sunk in, it's really hard to scramble out of it, I know that some of the takedowns that he got out of were more like from the back position where he was trying to, return him to the mat. And those are easy to Granby out of, especially when the guy's behind you. That's the ideal scenario to Granby roll. But now, regarding the scoring of the fight, that's where it's a little trickier because when you bring someone down and they pop up immediately, to me, that's not really a scoring move. It does give you a nod like, hey, you put some effort in that almost paid off, but it's not like 2 points,
I feel like it's like landing a jab. Like, it's just a jab, didn't really do much, but you got something for it. You made some action happen, but it's not like landing a huge overhand right.
Correct. Like it's not something that's gonna sway the round in your favor. You know, 'cause
Right.
I saw like DC was there saying, "Oh, those were 4 takedowns." I'm a wrestling coach, and I know. I'm like, this is not a wrestling match.
Right.
You know, it doesn't count that way because then he's getting 1 point escape points every time he gets up too. You know, like it doesn't work that way. You know, and because the criteria is very different to me, and at least my understanding of the rules, it's about damage and about control. Right? Like who's dictating the pace of the match, who's controlling the positions of the match, and who's doing the most damage. And in my eyes, damage is king, right? But positional control is, you know, and the pacing of the match is probably second there. So when the guy, you bring the guy down to the mat and then he pops up right away, you didn't really show positional control and you didn't really do any damage.
Mm-hmm.
You did more than he did, but not a heck of a lot more.
Right,
so
right. Especially when the rest of the round is pretty even.
Yeah. So, you know, when those things happen, you know, it's not swaying the decision to me. Now, the times that he took him down and held him down and was landing short little shots, that's different. Now he's imposing his will. He's doing some damage. DJ can't get out. You know, he's showing control.
Right.
So in an absence of anything else, that sways me to, you know, okay, he won this round. But even then, those rounds were real tight. You know, it's a hard one to score because, man, not a whole lot. Because I'll tell you, like DJ did land some good shots. I think Henry looked like he was throwing a lot more heat, but DJ was landing a lot more early. Like I saw round one for DJ for sure. Those early leg kicks. Man, like Henry's legs welt up immediately.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that. As far as damage, what constitutes damage? Is it the person having visible damage, or is it the person reacting to something as if they're damaged? So if you constantly get leg kicked and your leg turns red, but you're fine, but you look like you're fine, you're moving fine, you're not limping, you don't wince, are you being damaged because we see some red marks on your leg? Like, I'm talking about not just like slapping a leg red. Like, you see some, like, you know, some long-lasting red marks. Versus if you get hit once, and we see this all the time, a nice solid leg kick when the person's just about to plant their foot down, boom, the person like knee buckles, and then, you know, it looks like they're really wincing. Which constitutes as damage?
That's a good question. I think I would like to say ideally it would be actual damage, not just cosmetic, right? So like if I have a bruise on my arm, you know, it's not really doing anything and it's not affecting my performance whatsoever. I mean, better than nothing, but that's not like real damage versus when, like you said, you've been chopping a guy out and his leg is wobbly and stuff like that. That's showing, okay, this guy was damaged. And ultimately the way I'm seeing it is if this fight goes to a decision, what would have happened if this fight would have continued, right? With the current state of wear and tear that the fighter has, you know? So like if we're looking at a 5-round fight and after the 5th round, you know, we have to go to the scorecards and I see one guy's bouncing up and down and the other guy can't get up because his leg is totally damaged. You know, to me that, okay, well, clearly if this fight went to round 6, it wouldn't go well for this guy because he can barely move, you know, because he's so damaged.
He lasted just enough to finish the fight.
Right. So to me, like that's where like the damage equation sort of phases in. And at the same time, it's a fight. We're trying to damage the guy, you know, where our goal is to try to damage him to the point where he can't continue or he taps out, you know, or the ref stops it.
Sure.
So I think that's a factor here. Now, like what you mentioned with Henry, like even though he was getting his legs turned red like after one kick, which it was a weird banding too because they were like both right behind the kneecaps.
Yes.
It was very unusual. You don't really see it like that too often. Normally, I mean, I think DJ was also kicking him right behind the knee.
Yes, because Henry was kind of standing a little bit more bladed than normal. Yeah,
he was definitely like they were saying like almost like a traditional karate stance or whatnot, where he was kind of wide stance.
Right.
But yeah, so it was interesting that happened so early, and I think that made everybody think that maybe it was those kicks that were already breaking down his foot and why he was giving up his ankle.
Sure.
But I guess it's all speculation from our point of view right now as to what was actually going on. But I think on the damage side of things, I mean, DJ didn't look really scathed, you know?
Right.
He was bested in a wrestling match for sure, but he didn't really look phased at all. And Henry, not that much more.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, he showed a little more wear and tear on him just because, like you said, the bruising on the legs, and I think he had a little black eye and whatnot, but not much more. So there wasn't really a lot of damage done by either guy that we could see like, oh, this guy got rocked or this guy was really messed up.
Sure.
So now I can see where, okay, now I guess who's dictating the pace of the match, who's controlling the position of the match, and that you'd have to say was leaning towards Henry's favor.
Sure. Now the other facet of that is knowledge of fighting. It's knowledge of having sparred with many different people, of sparring yourself, right? Like moving around and knowing how a match could go, how a pace can go, and having knowledge of different fighters' strategies. And Demetrious Johnson, he never really backs people up in a fight. I mean, his style isn't predicted on that. It's on angles. He's always moving a little bit backwards and then a lot more to the left or to the right and attacking it around the corner, if you will. So even the pace of on their feet, it looked like DJ was landing more shots. And even though he was I guess moving backwards in the momentum factor, it didn't look, I don't know, to me it didn't look like Henry was controlling the pace, quote unquote.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And especially when you consider like all the leg kicks and stuff that DJ was landing effectively, I think the punch stats would probably favor him as far as output.
Right.
And I'm looking at it now. Yeah, so it says here, you know, he landed 110 out of 178 total strikes versus Henry's 71 of 177. So, you know, when we're talking about striking, he definitely didn't Henry didn't win it on striking. What he wanted on was what they considered 5 out of 14 takedowns. Right?
Wow. Okay.
So
to them, the takedowns were far more significant than the striking, I guess. Because I guess, I mean, when you look at, like, I wasn't mad when the fight ended. I kind of assumed it was DJ, and then they said Henry, but I wasn't shocked because it was so close. And then you go back to the variable that you were saying. From the stand-up tip, it was pretty even. So what do we look at the other factors? And I guess Henry, you know, won in the other realm of fighting that they were doing, and that was the wrestling.
Correct. And I think that's what generally happens, right? Like, especially with, and let's be honest, most of the judges here are not really that well versed in mixed martial arts as you would want them to be.
Right.
You know, especially when you have the Adelaide Bird.
Oh my God.
She wasn't there tonight, but that's the type of quality we're dealing with. Sure. So I think they're looking, well, all right, the striking is pretty even, but the wrestling is very uneven. You know, clearly somebody's doing something significantly better than the other person.
Right. And
right?
I know some people are calling for more live, like round by round scorecards, like it being visual, it being shown to the public. Like, hey, this is what the refs just scored, or the judges just scored for this round, as opposed to revealing them at the end of the fight by surprise. But honestly, that's cool, but that's not going to change that who's judging the fight. It's still the same people.
Right. Well, it's interesting. If you look at the stats, I mean, two of the judges scored it 3 rounds to 2 for Henry. One called it 3 for 2 for DJ. But then on UFC Fight Pass, they have the audience score it. And the audience scored it a draw.
Interesting.
And they scored the final round even, which a case could be made for it. They essentially said DJ, Henry, and then the final round split. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like, what's going on? Yeah, I don't know. It's like even the last round could have easily, if anything, that might have been one of Henry's, I guess, better rounds, if anything.
Yes, I think it was a better round for him.
Yeah.
And when you're scoring a 5-round fight and you come out on the 5th round and you take it, that's a big step towards winning the decision. You know.
Sure.
I think when you're doing title fights, like I told you, especially for me, how you close a fight is very indicative of who would have won this fight if it kept going.
Right.
So when you close a fight on top, it shows a lot of like, well, if the fight would have kept going, obviously he wasn't wearing down, he was still going. Big factor, to close out a round on top and a fight on top. So
sure.
Yeah, I could see the nod going for him. It's definitely not a robbery or anything like that, but I could see where some people would be like, if we were doing punch stats, DJ should have won.
Right. Another thing to consider is how we literally watch the fight. We always have somebody that we kind of are interested more in, right? There's two people. You kind of have your favorite, even if you don't like either person. And you watch the fight not by watching everybody. You watch one person fight the other guy, and you see how that one person reacts, generally speaking. So I guess most people are watching DJ fight Henry Cejudo. But if you go back and watch the fight and you watch it but you watch Henry most of the time, you might see a different fight.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yep.
And it's not a bias. It's just you're missing things. You're missing how the other fighter is reacting to punches. You're actually missing the fact that, wow, that guy dodged a lot more punches than I thought. Because I was watching DJ throw the punches, and, it's hard to look at the next guy in the middle of them throwing punches or kicks or whatever the case may be. So, I think that's why it's hard to judge a fight right there live in front of these two people. When the action is happening so fast, you don't even have replays. You're watching one guy, and normally the judges, I feel this is one of the main reasons why the champs usually get the nod in those tight decisions, and that's because the judges are watching the champs fight. They're not watching the other guy fight.
Right. Yep. And like you said, hard to see everything. So I'm just pulling up different stuff here. So they had a round by round punch stat, which then makes the case more for Henry, right? Because they show that on round 5 he outlanded DJ.
Okay.
17 against 16. So really tight, but he did outland him, and then they scored a takedown for him as well. So now you have 3 rounds given to him.
Right.
And
that's interesting when you look at it round by round versus the entire fight, because let's face it, in MMA, they don't judge it like most other sports. Most other sports, we judge it by the end of the time limit. Basketball, it doesn't matter who scores the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. It's who has the most points at the end of the fight. Whereas MMA, it's the opposite. It's who won the first round, then who won the second round, then who won the third round. So let's say DJ outscored Henry by 20 punches for the entire fight. That doesn't mean that Henry didn't outscore him in individual rounds. That accumulation stat isn't necessarily indicative of who won each round, especially when we're considering 5 rounds.
Correct. And this is what I don't like about rounds.
Yeah.
For me, I think I spoke about this a while back, but I prefer 1 round, Pride style.
Right. 10 minutes.
1 10-minute round, let people go at it. If you can't make a decision, 1 overtime. But essentially, you're only scoring that round, right? So we did a 1-round fight, 10 minutes, and I couldn't pick a winner. Now, when we do the overtime, we're only looking at the overtime round now.
Right.
Because clearly, the regulation, we couldn't choose. So you're never looking back 5 rounds and trying to figure out how to score this together.
Sure. It's not
because as a fan, it's hard. When I'm going back and I'm watching a fight live, I'm trying to do the numbers in my head, okay, who won round 1, who won round 2, and it's kind of silly, you know what I mean? Because what you're saying is true, it should be the sum total of everything. But likewise, if we try to watch 25 minutes of fight, how do you score someone who won the whole fight is also tricky.
Right, you're going to forget a lot of things that happened.
For sure.
Yeah. And then the ups and downs, like you said, just the fact that, we hold a lot of weight on the person who finishes the fight very strong. Let's say that person was getting dominated for 4 rounds, And then in the end of or in the 5th round, they dominate that round, and we're like, whoa! He ended up scoring 100 more punches that round, let's say. And now the scorecard is pretty. Not the scorecard. The fight stats are pretty similar because he made up for it in that last round, all the rounds that he got dominated in. But we see this huge amount of damage, so that can skew people's idea of who won the fight if you're judging it all on like one big accumulation, like one big round as opposed to 5.
Correct. And I think it's more realistic, because at the end of the day, like I said, like we should be judging a fight based who would have won if it kept going versus like, well, one guy won the first 3 rounds,
Right.
But then he got destroyed in the last 2 rounds and he got saved, that it was a 5-round fight.
Right. I always think like, imagine in basketball, if we're like, well, Golden State Golden State scored 50 points in the first quarter, and the Lakers only scored 20. So they won the first quarter, and then like when you look at it that way, it actually doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Correct. Yeah, it would definitely change how people play basketball or football if it was won by periods.
Right. They would hustle a lot more.
Yeah. For sure. So it's a great point, and like that's why I'm always in favor of just the one long round. I know they don't like it, and it also makes a lot of things very ambiguous because now, for example, a takedown is not worth as much in a 5-minute round, right? Because like let's say in this case, Cejudo scored a takedown in round 2 and was on top of him. As soon as he scored it, he never let top control off.
Right.
And now they go into round 3 and they start back on their feet again. And in round 3, he scores no takedowns, and DJ's on top and outstrikes him 2-1. Right now, if there was no break between rounds, he would have remained on top of him for who knows how long.
Right.
Right.
And that can make the guy on bottom even more tired.
Correct. Or maybe he would have got a submission opportunity or better ground and pound opportunities. So it definitely changes what would happen in the fight. And again, I'm all about realism. I'm all about as little intervention from outside forces as possible. Let 2 people get in there and let them do their thing without people jumping in or calling timeout or whatever.
Right. It would be cool if it was like again, like in basketball or football, once the ball's in the air, if the time runs out, we're still going with what happens after the ball's in the air. And in fighting, it would be cool if if there was still scrambles going on, even though we don't stop it until there's a clear break in action or something. I know that's really hard to judge, and it's kind of like a pipe dream, but that's something that could be interesting.
Yeah, that would take shots after the bell to a whole new level.
Oh yeah. Now, last fight. I mean, that was a great fight. You're wondering, how do we top that? How do we make anything more exciting than Henry Cejudo versus Demetrious Johnson? TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt. Like, I had goosebumps as they were walking out. Great fight.
Yeah, very similar to the first one, but just faster.
Right.
Which, to me, kind of shows that they didn't really address some of the issues that Cody had with the first fight. He was patient until he wasn't, right?
That sounds like a Nate Diaz line.
Yeah, because he started off, all right, measuring and, very similar to the first fight, and then boom, gets a good shot in. And right away, like he sees red, starts rushing at him.
Yeah.
And during one of those rushes, he gets clipped. And he gets clipped harder. And then he's not able to recover. It's almost the same exact way that he fell too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way he gets KO'd, like the legs give out, he falls flat on his ass, and he's awkward, and it's over. So I'm not sure. I mean, if it's a chin issue or just, TJ's a beast, so I'm sure he hits hard as a rock, but like he's got to definitely be a lot more conservative on his approach.
Right.
And if you watched how he fought Dominic, you remember every time he dropped Dominic, he let him get back up. He didn't try to rush him.
Yeah.
And Dominic's not even a power puncher. He's not known for KOing people like TJ is.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we talked about before, he might have been better served giving that type of respect. and just be content with outpointing him.
Right.
Because Cody's definitely very fast.
Oh, yeah.
And great, like, hand-eye coordination and slips punches. But when he starts brawling, that all goes out the window.
Yeah, he goes back to his roots, those thug roots.
Yeah, once you start brawling, you're not seeing punches coming in, which makes you more susceptible to get KO'd.
Right.
So I think he would have probably been better served fighting that same type of style where you drop the guy, let him get back up.
Yeah. I mean,
and make him feel foolish. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because I think that's what happened with Dominic. Like he kept dropping Dominic, and he would just back up and call him. Point at the cage, do a little shuffle. That is very infuriating for somebody who's not used to missing or getting dropped, and that's just going to make them fight more desperate. And you're still being very patient, and you can because you got the speed.
Right.
But I think he has something to prove, obviously. He's like, I'm going to drop you. I'm going to finish you. I'm going to show you that was a fluke what you did last time.
Right.
But clearly, it wasn't. It was pretty much the same result.
Sure. To me, what it seemed a little indicative. Like, I see your point, and it makes total sense. But it seems like an amalgamation of what we just talked about, the letting Dominic Cruz up and taunting him multiple times, the impatience during the TJ Dillashaw fights. Or it's like he starts patient, and then, like you said, once he gets hit hard, he throws it out the window. To me, it doesn't seem like, I don't know if he's as prepared strategically to fight, or there's a lack of good strategy that makes sense, as far as being prepared for these fights. But or he was prepared but chose not to follow what his coaches say. But if I'm his coach, I'm saying, listen, you knocked Dominic Cruz down a couple times. It's round 4. Next time you knock him down, swarm him. He's not going to finish you. Take a little bit of a chance, especially when you're used to being the fighter that takes chances. That was the time, if any, to be aggressive. But against TJ, he should have done that same thing, like you said, but he does the opposite. So to me, it's like, are they prepared? Are they doing the right thing there? Or is he just saying, like, I'm tough, I'm going to beat him, I know I can just because I know I can? Like, strategy doesn't matter to me. Like, it seems like a lack of strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I don't know if it's the coach's fault or more that Cody is just, he's clearly emotionally invested in this, right? Like, or at least he's doing a good job telling us he is, based on the interviews and all the press conferences and stuff like that. But yeah, because he obviously has the capability of being very strategic, but when he dropped TJ this time and he just starts going right at him right away, it's like, man, like, this is what happened last time.
Right.
And but doing the same thing.
Did he drop TJ?
And expecting different results is insanity.
Right. Did he drop TJ? It looked like TJ might have slipped, though.
Oh, not drop, but he definitely rocked him. You know what I mean? So,
right.
And it looked like that set him off. Like, to me, it was like he saw blood. He's like, okay, now I'm going in hard.
Right. It's like those cartoons when somebody gets mad and then the camera gets really close to their face and their eyes turn red and there's fire behind them. Like, like you can imagine that happening to Cody in those very moments.
Yeah, it just looks like he gets heated, and instead of being, strategic there, he's just going gun ho for the finish.
Right.
So I think
and TJ is way too talented. Way too prepared, as always. He has too many tools. He has far too many setups for different types of strikes, different takedowns, different feints. Like, the guy's got so many, like, everything's a setup. So a guy like that, you have to be ultra patient against, and that's the last guy you gotta get emotional against, honestly. So it's like, I guess, the perfect storm.
Yeah, I mean, TJ is definitely a complete fighter. He can fight off both stances. He can wrestle. He can strike. He has KO power.
He can high kick. He can low kick.
Yeah.
He can box.
And he's obviously very game. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's somebody you definitely have to respect every time you step in there in front of. And you have to come in very well prepared because he's not an easy guy to fight,
Sure. Did you see the post-fight press conference?
Oh, I did not see the
Okay,
post fight. What happened there?
TJ said something very interesting. He said their strategy was to do the opposite of the first fight. He said, normally I come in, I'm very crafty, I use a lot of footwork, I do fancy things, a lot of feints, everything that TJ has been doing the last 5-6 fights. He's like, normally that's what I do, but we figured he's going to expect that, and he's going to get a little upset, and he's going to get overzealous, and he's going to come and do what he always does. Cock back, wind up, throw the big right hand. So he said their strategy this fight was to not do all that and kind of like lure him in and then sit on our punches and just counter him with our own slip right. So we're kind of luring him in, waiting for him to come at us, and then we're planting. I guess last fight, every time, what's his name, TJ threw a kick, that's when Cody kind of straight blasted him, barraged him, ran at him, tried to counter him. So and TJ would do his thing, move back, get out of the way. So I thought it was very interesting that was the strategy they went with. Let's fight fire with fire. Let's stand there and lure the guy and let him do his game plan, but we just have the plan to counter him as he comes in. And that's exactly what TJ did.
Yeah, I'm actually watching the fight again here as we speak here, and for sure he's sitting heavy on his punches. I just saw the finishing salvo here, and
yeah. I mean, the way he knocked him down the first time, I forget what happened, but Cody tried to. I think that's when TJ was scrambling back up from kind of being a turtle on the bottom, and then
correct. It appeared it was a kick catch that
put TJ down.
That put TJ down, and he threw a front kick. Cody hit him with a right and lunged forward at him, and then they started exchanging. And
TJ didn't back up.
TJ catches him. Yeah, TJ rocks him and actually has a Kimura trappish position. It looks like he's actually trying to set up a crucifix because he's got Cody's arm trapped. But then he ends up managing to get up to his feet after eating a bunch of shots. But he looks like he's recovered, but his legs are still wobbly.
And then he sits on his punches again, and then TJ does the same thing, kind of sits on his punches, and just kind of. I think he slipped to the left and threw the counter right as he felt the Cody overhand right coming.
Yeah, I'll tell you like a few seconds right here because I'm watching it live again, and he hasn't backed up against the fence. Standing conventional stance, just waiting for him, and clocks him with a right hook. So it looked like Cody was trying to clinch in or shoot in, and as he came to shoot in, he just unleashes a heavy right hook, and that was pretty much the end. At that point, then it's just Cody trying to get up to his feet while he's eating nonstop punches,
and then
knee to the head, and that's the knee to the head was just the end of it. Now I gotta tell you, as a fight purist, a little early stopped.
It was,
like I said, probably not change the outcome, but Cody was on his feet, solid, with his hands up, looking at TJ when they stopped the fight.
Right.
So that's a weird call, considering how long you've already let it go.
Right. Now, considering that.
Would it make a difference? Probably not, but it's fighting. Let the guy fight.
Right. Let him let his knee buckle one more time, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's probably better for him in the long run. Honestly, you're not taking as much damage and recover sooner. But I could see, he didn't make too much of a complaint, so I guess not a big deal. But I could see some people saying, hey, man, come on, let me fight. Let me bang, bro.
I do let you bang. Yeah, it was very interesting. I felt like once that knee landed, I'm stopping it. Like as soon as the knee landed, I'm like, all right, this guy's effed. And then the ref let it go like 2 or 3 more punches. But I feel maybe that's what the ref saw. He's like, I'm about to stop it. Then the knee lands. He's like, oh, crap. And then he kind of let it go another 2 punches. I feel like he should have stopped it sooner or I guess a little later, right?
Yeah, well, like I'm always one to let it go later. I'm not in a rush to get fights stopped, especially when the guy is fighting back or trying to get up.
Right.
I'm all for fight stops when the guy just has their hands up and they're not doing anything or they're on their belly. I don't want to see someone getting hurt that doesn't want to be in there. But when people are resisting or they're moving and
Hmm.
they're doing the things that you have to do to survive, and then you stop them, then it's a little problematic, you know.
Right.
But
You have to give them a chance, I guess.
yeah, like there's certain positions like when someone's mounted and they're blocking punches and they stop it there. I mean, what else are you doing when you're mounted? You're blocking. You know what I mean? Like you give your back or you're blocking a little bit. So there's some situations where I feel like, oh, stops jump in too early, you know. But
Yeah, yeah. Like that is a worst case to stop the fight when a guy's like totally shelled up in the mount and is taking shots to the arms, but you could tell he's blocking most of them, and the ref stops it. Versus this fight, he was actually moving and he got up from the bottom, and he was still like trying to cover up. He was getting hit with a lot of shots, but you're right. He kind of was getting up. He was moving. He was making an effort. The guy just didn't want to throw a strike back because he felt even more at risk.
correct. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, like you
And
said,
now,
though.
what do you think of
Yeah.
moving forward now? Because it looks like Henry called out the winner of the 135ers, and now on the post fight, now they're saying he wants to do it to TJ. So, I mean,
Yeah.
now it's like, is every title now going to be to get a second title?
Well, I'll tell you what I think, and then what I've heard from the press conferences. What I think is Henry's getting overzealous, and I think he thought he was kind of being a little overlooked because they were talking about the DJ versus TJ fight. And then what I saw was TJ Dillashaw like wanting to brush him off, but he wanted to seem like a tough guy, so he's like, "Yeah, bring it on." And in the post-fight press conference, TJ does say the same thing. He kind of said he thinks, if anything, Henry probably should be fighting Demetrious Johnson in a rematch next, and he hasn't really earned the right to he hasn't really fought everybody in that division. The title just changed hands for the first time ever, and he was kind of like, I'm game if they want to set it up, but I don't think he's necessarily the next guy. So that's what I kind of read into it, and that's what was said. It sounds like TJ will fight anybody just because he wants to be perceived as that guy, but I don't think he's too into that match because, first of all, Henry's not a big star. That's not a huge super fight to sell. And B, Demetrious Johnson needs to get his rematch.
For sure. That I thought it was a weird call out by Henry Cejudo because you want a narrow decision against the longest reigning champ who had finished you previously.
Right.
Right.
You can't just leave now.
To me, I'm thinking obligatory rematch.
Of course.
Because now we're going for the rubber match. We're 1-for-1.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and a big thing I saw with this whole fight, what I kept saying during the fight, I was rooting for Demetrious Johnson, but I kept saying, in order for this guy to be respected as much as Anderson and John Jones and Daniel Cormier, is he needs to go through some drastic adversity. Maybe it's a loss, maybe it's a knockdown hard where he has to survive the round and ends up coming out on top and finishing the fight with a win. But he needs that serious adversity to show that he's human and to show that no, he's just beating everybody, but people are pretty close to his skill level. So this is going to be his biggest fight ever. This is going to make Henry Cejudo the most money he's ever fought. And that's a rematch against the guy that you guys built an amazing trilogy with each other. You can't leave to fight TJ Dillashaw. In my opinion, it's not as much of a big fight as it is the third fight with Demetrious Johnson.
Yeah, it's funny because I've listened to Chael Sonnen talk about Henry Cejudo. He's always telling him that he's a rookie as far as in terms of marketing himself, and this kind of is showing that, because it was just such a weird call out because it's like you said, totally unwarranted and not even well advised as well. And I think, besides his own circumstance, which I agree with you, the fight with DJ is going to probably be the best fight for him. Not only that he can win, but also in marketing terms, because at least now there's a lot more eyeballs on it on a third round. Because maybe everybody had the foregone conclusion that DJ was unbeatable at 125, and now that he's shown he was.
Right, you have a big story now.
There's a story, right? There's history. Um, but the other thing I don't like is now that everybody's chasing 2 belts,
Mm,
right? Like everybody wants to
right.
be a champ, you know?
Right. It's kind of like one
You had
person
Connor
breaks
do
the
it, then you
record.
had DC do it, and
Yeah.
now you want this guy to do it. It's like, how about we just defend the belts that we got?
Right. It's getting old.
It's gotten old for me already. Like
Yeah.
it's old. Like when I heard him say that, I'm like,
Come
Christ,
on.
like let's just defend the belt once. Let's do that
Right.
first before we start jumping on and becoming legacy champions.
Right.
At least DC has defended his belt significantly, and it made sense for him to move up to another belt. I
Right.
get it.
In a division he once fought in as well.
Correct. You know what I mean? So like DC had the best case for it,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Connor was a money grab, and hell, he can do it.
Right. Right.
But I mean, I don't see anybody else right now that has that type of status that I can say, oh, I
Sure.
need to get a second belt. Like
Like
you're not there yet,
if John Jones didn't get in all his trouble, he had the case.
for
Anderson
sure.
Silva for years had the case. GSP for years had the case. But those guys were champions for 5-6 years, of course. Like Demetrious Johnson had the case. He should have done it. And I think a lot of people are going to talk about this fight as he kind of blew it. He should have taken the risk and fought TJ Dillashaw.
You would say that, but I don't think it's a good fight for him.
Me either. He's a
Because
tiny guy.
TJ's a lot more dangerous. I think especially when we talk about striking power. I don't know if TJ could be able to put away Mighty Mouse, especially if Mighty Mouse has to move up a weight class.
Right.
Because he's not a big 25-pounder either.
No, that's the crazy part.
And yeah, so I think that's the reason why he didn't want to do that, because he's like, I'm good. The odds are not in my favor.
Right.
And I think he's probably pretty content where he's at with his career. He's done a lot of other things now. Like I think he streams on Twitch or whatnot. He makes a boatload of cash there. So
Right.
I think, and you see the way he took the loss. He took it in stride. He wasn't hit hard by it. He didn't make excuses.
Right.
He took it like a man.
Yeah, super graciously.
So
yeah, no, I mean he's a great champion. Was a great champion. Still is a champion. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't stop being a champion after defending your title 11 times and then you lose once. You're still a champion in our eyes.
exactly.
But you're right. Like it's okay too that he's fine. It was crazy to me that everybody's like, you should go up. You should fight somebody else, different champ. Why? Let the guy win in his division. That's the whole point. Like that's why there's weight classes, so that you can be the champ at a division, so that you're not undersized, you're not undermatched because of a person that's a little heavier, that's a little stronger. Like we're going for skill for skill. That's the whole point. We want to see who has the best skill, void of everything else.
Correct. Yeah, I think the chase of these double belts and the super fights and all that is kind of mudding the waters of what the goals should be. Ideally, we have champs that defend belts, and they don't just go hold the belts in hostage and have to make a interim belts, and now we need interim belts for the interim belts now.
God, yeah.
The young kid that just won the interim belt, now I guess they made him give it up.
Colby, yeah, right.
Colby, and now they're fighting for another interim belt, or now that's for the title belt. It's just so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. What was interesting is Dana White in the post-fight press conference. He made a mention of it, and he didn't necessarily say that all right, Henry Cejudo and TJ Dillashaw is a fight we're gonna make, but he didn't say he wasn't gonna make it. What he did say was his definition of what a super fight is, and he was saying the term itself is being thrown around way too often, and the whole a super fight is not just one champion versus another champion. It's a whole bunch of other factors that he kind of talked about, which is the situation in Cormier and Stipe. Both guys, were very dominant. Both guys had beaten everybody else. There's kind of when you clean out a division, and your champions, that's when it's a super fight, and it's different weight classes. But Henry Cejudo doesn't make the case for a super fight. He's a guy who just won a belt. That's all he did. He just won a belt.
Yeah.
You know, he took a loss not too long ago to the guy he just beat. Like, you kind of have to beat most of the people, if not all of them, in your division to warrant something else like that.
Correct. I agree.
So I like Dana White's take on it for sure.
Yeah. And I'm surprised he didn't mention like a rematch right away with DJ. But then again, I know he doesn't really have any love lost for DJ.
Right. But also DJ didn't go out of his way and say, I need that rematch. I want it. He was trying to me, he was trying to like let Henry have his shine and not rain on his parade.
Which might be a mistake for him, or because I don't know, if I was the champ and I just lost it, I would think my immediate focus is to get it back.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like he had to go back to the drawing board because he got blown out of the water.
No.
It's like, no, he got beat in a narrow contest by takedowns pretty much, which he can work on, obviously. He's got great coaches and he's a great athlete himself.
Sure. To
come back and win a rematch. So it seems weird that he didn't go out there and say, I want this rematch. It was a great fight. Right. I have all respect, but I know I could take him out. I want to get him back. I want my belt back,
Yeah. One thing DJ said after the fight was that he injured his knee during the fight and he injured his foot during the fight. And that's kind of what he's worried about now. He feels like he's most likely going to have surgery on his knee because he felt something or heard something pop in like the second round. And then he said he injured his foot. There's pictures online of his foot all blown up. And he said that was probably just from constantly kicking with that foot and, landing on the shin sometimes, landing on the hip sometimes, landing on the knee sometimes. So I think that's what his excuse was. I want to get healthy first. I don't want to call somebody out when I'm helpless. I can't fight right now, so I can't call anybody out right now.
Yeah, but I still think that's probably a mistake. Anyways, I understand. He looks like a sincere, cool dude, but like in this day and age, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
He should be making the case, and then afterwards, I still got to get surgery and all that, but I want that fight anyways.
Right.
Because if you're not going to look out for it, you're just going to get passed by.
Absolutely. That hasn't stopped other people. I mean, so many people in the past have like Michael Bisping. The guy threw caution to the wind with talking, even though he wasn't ready to fight as the champ multiple times. So, but he secured his spot. Same thing with DC. The guy secured his spot against Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar isn't even eligible to fight for another 6 months.
Yep.
But he just did his due diligence. You do what you got to do.
Yeah. In this day and age, you definitely have to make your own shots. You can't let people call them for you. So it's like when people nowadays are saying like, "Oh, who you want to fight next?" "Oh, I'll fight anybody." Wrong. You should always be ready. If you're not the guy thinking of it, have your coach or have your agent, whoever is going to be planning your career, have things for you to do because that's your moment.
Right. Honestly, the only exception to that rule, and even that can be argued, is when you're the champ. If you're the champion, you just won the belt, cool. You don't have to call anybody out. You could talk about the other side of things, about all the good that has come to you and all that stuff. But even then, if you want to create drama, if you want to catch more eyes towards you, which Cormier has shown even as the champ, you got to either call somebody out or make noise, turn heads, say, I'm not going to fight this guy. Say something to get people's interest.
Correct. You have to always be drawing attention to yourself because that's what gets you paid.
Yeah, man.
At the end of the day, it's not about how good of a fighter you are. It's about how many people want to pay to watch you fight.
Sure.
So I think they definitely have to do that. But I understand what you're saying. As a champion, there's probably less reasons, but you got to make them up now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to fight this guy. And that guy, I'm not fighting him either. Like, that's actually pretty interesting to say. Last thing before we go, I want to get your quick thoughts. Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov was announced officially for October, beginning of October.
Yes.
Who you got? How's that fight going down?
Uh, Man, I've seen Khabib in action, and yeah, definitely if he gets a takedown, it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be a long night for McGregor. But then again, McGregor's gone against wrestlers. He's been taken down. He's got to back it up and knock people out. Uh, I'll tell you, I'm gonna say McGregor, but I think he'll put him out.
Mm.
I think he's more dangerous on his feet than Nurmagomedov is on the ground. That's probably a thin line, and maybe more so. The disparity of skill sets is probably not as large. I think McGregor has decent ground. Like, I think underestimated, but I think he has decent ground. Of course, he wants to be on his feet, but when you compare with Khabib's stand-up, is really not as polished, I would say,
Right,
as McGregor's ground is.
Right.
That makes sense.
And one thing about Conor is, especially against wrestlers, he's so good at being accurate and powerful, counter-striking while moving backwards. Like, that's something that he's good at moving forward and knocking you out. He's good at moving backwards and knocking you out. And that's kind of something you need against a wrestler, to be able to ride your bike backwards in reverse and throw a devastating strike that can clip Khabib. So I think that's where his X factor comes in. It's being able to do that. I don't think he's going to be able to like stalk Khabib down and have him backing up against the fence. Obviously, unless he hurts him and Khabib is out of it.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to be patient, moving back, letting this guy try to close distance and get clipped on the inside. That's how at least I would imagine the fight going. So I'm sure Khabib's team is all doing all sorts of game planning of how to avoid the dangers of McGregor and maybe draw him in somehow. But yeah, I think it's definitely it's going to be a great fight for sure. Everybody's going to watch it. I think that they've done all the hype sequence you could possibly do by having McGregor commit a crime and still get away with it. So they can market the hell out of this thing, I'm not too happy about how that went down. I think
but they had to do it. They had to.
Yeah. Oh, but you see, now to me, it's like now whether it was premeditated or not is a whole other factor.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Because the whole situation was ludicrous.
Yeah.
Right? Because first of all, it's a massive overreaction. From all accounts, they didn't even like push him around or anything. They just they spoke down to him. They punked him.
You're talking about to Artem. Yes.
Artem. They punked him, but it wasn't like they bullied him or they beat him up or anything like that. They just they cornered him and then they talked crap to him. Okay. Then to fly over like 20 people on a private jet, storm into a place, and by the way, someone from the media had to let them in. Right.
There was conspiracy in it.
So that's what to me is like, well, you can sort of prove there's conspiracy here, or maybe there's the beginnings of it, because it wasn't like a spontaneous trip.
Like, hey, we're in town, let's just crash the party. No, you had to come in from another country.
Yeah, you had to come from another country in a private jet to get over here.
Right.
So like to me, it's obviously planning. They knew where they were going. They had permission to get in there, and then something crazy happened. So to me, it looks more than anything premeditated, which makes it more of a crime than anything. It wasn't like, they just got out of control.
Right. This is what I think happened. I think the scenario was premeditated, like maybe on the spot. But within that premeditation, within that scenario, things got out of hand. And what I mean by that is maybe the plan was, whether the UFC knew or did not, or like kind of turned a blind eye to it, the plan was those guys drop in, crash the party, start shaking the bus, start scaring people, maybe throw a water balloon at it. But in the midst of all that, Conor maybe overreacted, picked up that thing and threw it against the bus, not realizing that it would smash the windows. Like it was an overreaction during this premeditation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that case could be made. But I can tell you right now, if that dolly did not smash into that window, that would have been like a nothing burger event.
Right.
It
Yeah.
needed something that crazy to make it work. Now,
Sure.
I'm sh- I don't think he was planning on like the glass shattering into people's face and stuff like that. Which is a whole other problem. But there was definitely something outrageous had to have happened, because if they were just around the bus and making noise, it would have been it would have been like a little clip instead of like running headlines for the next week or so. But either way, to me, that whole thing is kind of because you're sort of by making this into the super fight that it's going to become, you're sort of promoting that behavior now. Like, you're telling other fighters in the next generation, you want to make big bucks, you want to be the star of the event, go make a scene like this
Right.
so that
Yeah.
we pay attention to you. And then what's that? That's not the message, from a moral standpoint that I want to be passing on to people.
Sure. Good point.
You
Good
know.
point.
So that's my problems with it. From a marketing standpoint, of course, it's genius. You're applying to people's base level of controversy and all that. So yeah, everybody's gonna watch it, myself included. So it works, 100% it works. But is that what we should be supporting on a corporational level?
At
'Cause,
least at least not put it in the first big promo for the fight. At least let it
yeah.
trickle in later in the promotions. Like that was
Yes,
the
I
centerpiece of
saw
it.
the promo. It's like with the van and the
Yeah.
dolly flying, and I'm like, oh. So you were at one point he was. I remember when it happened, he was chastising McGregor, and now he's like, oh, now it's like this is the marketing material we're using,
Yeah.
and it's like, come on, like you're telling me you're not complicit in this?
Right.
That's why to me, like, it's more, and they had cameras ready and all that, It's like,
Right. Right.
that's why I'm saying this was a planned thing. Now, obviously, maybe not at the level they thought it was, but they knew some crazy stuff was going to happen, and they wanted to be there to make the promotion of this event strong. And they succeeded. I'm sure it's going to crush it.
Right.
But I think it's a bad message to send to future fighters and to the youth and stuff. And at the
Definitely.
end of the day, like, we're trying to, at least for me as a martial artist, I'm trying to spread good messages to people, being happy, balanced, working with your fellow man, versus like this crazy street fight culture, party stuff that they're trying to push down people's throats.
Right.
So
That reality show type stuff.
exactly, that's where I start having a problem with it. Because then, as a martial arts, if you have a martial arts school, now these are the type of people you're going to attract as well. They're like, oh man, I want to be a thug like Conor McGregor, and just call people out and mess them up and do what I want.
Right.
I'm like, no, that's not exactly what we do at this gym. You know what I mean? Kind of the opposite is what we're looking for.
Man. Crazy times. That's all I got to say. Crazy times.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I guess my pick, if anything, I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say I think Khabib's gonna win the fight, but I'll probably be rooting for Conor because I've always rooted against him, and it's like I gotta stop rooting against the guy. He keeps winning, so I think I'll root for Conor, but deep down, I'm picking Khabib to win the fight. Is that cheating? Can I say that?
No. That's welcome.
Right.
So you're I'm guessing you're thinking takedown to ground and pound?
Yeah, I think he's gonna dominate him on the ground. I think he's gonna have no problems getting in and just smothering Conor. And I believe maybe even in the first or second round he'll be able to just crush him. I don't know if he'll submit him, but I feel like he's just gonna dominate him on the ground. I don't know. I think Conor will be able to land some shots and it'll make the fight a little exciting, but ultimately, kind of like Stipe versus Francis Ngannou is gonna happen.
Gotcha. All right.
We'll see.
It can definitely happen, because if Khabib's able to get in entries and clinch and stuff, yeah, it's going to be problematic for Conor for sure. Because he's got a great ground and pound game, a great
Right.
ground control game, So if he can bring the fight there relatively quickly without issue, yeah, it's not going to spell well. And I think endurance-wise, it's always bad for McGregor when the fights go long.
Sure.
He's not an endurance athlete. He's a fast twitch, explosive guy. He wants to put people away early.
Right, but Khabib, he can kind of do it all. But also on the endurance factor, your endurance is always good when you're on offense. When you're on defense, it sucks. Doesn't matter who you are. That kind of can play a factor in Khabib too. He's known for good endurance. But what happens when he's on the opposite end of excuse me, of hard strikes? What happens when he's on the opposite end of being taken down? I'm not saying he's gonna get taken down, but anything can happen. That's when his cardio can suck. That's when he can look like he's winded. Damage always causes people to get tired. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I always say when you're fighting comfortable, you have great endurance. When people are where they like to be, it's easy to fight that way. It's when people take you out of your comfort zone, when you start getting stressed more and you get fatigued faster. So it's going to be very polarizing because they're essentially on opposite ends of this. Yeah. Right? Like one of them wants to be on the feet, other one wants to be on the ground. So whoever's not where they're at is going to wear out faster.
Right. And they're both supreme experts at those factors, about standing and about ground. They both have finished fights from both. They're both feared for those two elements that are complete opposites. So we'll see who wins.
Yeah, absolutely. We're probably going to be seeing more hype wagon stuff than ever. So
hey, it's good times. Good times to be a fan.
There's another dolly being thrown out somewhere.
I hope not. Cool, man. On that note, great talk, and I'll talk to you next week.
Awesome. Take care, Abe.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.